Hello everyone, this is part 12 of What If Naruto and Hinata Had a Kid, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. The birds outside her window sang to her their morning song. They told her it was time to get up, time to eat, and time to start the day. Rubbing the sleep out of her large eyes, she let her small feet touch the carpet on her floor. The house was still quiet. Mommy wasn't up yet. Then again, the house was quiet yesterday and Mommy was in the kitchen before her. It was weird to see, but she got a hot meal out of it, so who was she to complain? She made her way to the kitchen again. Maybe her mother was on a new streak. But no, only a dark kitchen met her bright blue eyes, and her stomach even growled now. Her small feet now carried her to her parents' room. It was the biggest room in the house, with a large white bed in the middle and large windows. The sunlight was always bright in her parents' room, and when it rained she could go and snuggle with Daddy and Mommy. She saw a lump in the middle of the bed. A blob of black hair was on top of the pillows. She took hold of the comforter and pulled herself on top of the bed. Crawling so she was right next to the warm lump, she shook it lightly. "Mommy," she said, her tiny hands shaking her mother's shoulders. She looked up and saw the woman's face. She saw a smile on her lips and she shook harder. "Mommy, you're awake," she accused, now shaking her mother with more force. Getting frustrated and getting no results from the pretending to be sleeping woman, Yumi stood up and prepared to jump on her mother like she did with Daddy. She readied her legs with enough tension to jump hard enough to stir the woman and get her out of the bed. Suddenly the lump moved and with a smile her mother grabbed hold her, yanked her back under the covers. Yumi let out a small scream when her mother took hold of her, followed by child laughter from the both of them. Mommy could be fun, not as fun as Daddy could be, but she was still fun. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Yumi whined, nestled against her mother's warm body. "In a minute," her mother said, snuggling next to her daughter. It was hard to resist mother's warmth, so Yumi breathed in her mother's warm sweet scent. She looked up at her mother's sleeping face. Her mother was so beautiful, her porcelain skin with her midnight black hair. Everyone said she looked just like her, but Yumi didn't understand that. They had the same kind of hair, though the same color. Yumi's hair could be unmanageable at times, like now when it was a mess of tangles. They had the same skin color of porcelain white, but she did not have her mother's snow-like eyes. Hers were bright blue and always wide and smiling, where her mother's were always warm and kind. How could she look like her beautiful mother? People said they did, but Yumi never saw it. Her stomach rumbled, jeering her out of her admiration of her mother, back into her present state of lacking food. "Mommy," she began to whine, and she heard her mother sigh in defeat. Okay, let's go." She pulled back the big white comforter and Yumi almost jumped out of bed. Her mother put on a satin baby blue robe before following her daughter out of the bedroom to start the day. Her hands were becoming red and almost raw with the amount of twisting and fiddling she was doing with them. She looked back at the clock on the wall and then back at the door. The two girls at her side occupied themselves with her hair instead of paying attention to the time. No, that's too extravagant, Ino. It needs to be simpler," Ten was arguing, and Hinata felt a tug on her hair, but she was too preoccupied with the person missing to really care what her two friends were arguing about. Her wedding was in less than an hour and she had still yet to put on her dress. Thinking back, she wondered why it was that the bride was at the church, as well as two of her bridesmaids, but somehow the dress wasn't. She began to really regret allowing Sakura to take home the dress. What on earth had made her agree in the first place? Men should never see the wedding dress before the wedding. "It's bad luck," she had said as she swept it out of Hinata's and into her own closet. "I've never heard that," Hinata argued, looking at the beautiful white dress longingly. "I have," Ino and Ten said in unison and looked like they agreed to Sakura's self-made decision. "Really?" Hinata asked again, only to receive nods from around the room, and it was left at that. So the dress stayed with Sakura until the big day. It actually seemed romantic when she would think about it. Naruto not seeing her in the dress or even the dress itself until their big day, the day they would become man and wife, today. That, and she was sure Sakura was thoroughly enjoying retelling the story of just how much Sasuke freaked out when he saw a wedding dress in his girlfriend's closet. Half an hour till, and still no Sakura or the dress. Oh God, what if Sakura slept in? What if she wasn't going to make it in time? What would Hinata get married in? Her bathrobe. Well, the bathrobe was white. Just when Hinata was wondering if her husband-to-be would even agree to marry her if she wore nothing but her sweatpants and sweater she came in with, the door burst open to reveal a very irritated and red-faced Sakura. So much relief swept over Hinata when she saw her carrying her dress she didn't even notice how upset the maid of honor seemed, because really Sakura was always upset about something or another. Oh, thank God, Hinata said, rushing toward her friend, leaving her two bridesmaids with combs in their hands standing in front of the vanity. So sorry I'm late, Sasuke had an episode, she said, handing Hinata the dress over carefully. Ten came to help and they put the large white bag on a hook by the tri-mirror at the end of the room. An episode? Ino asked behind Ten and Hinata, who were now unzipping the dress. Okay, let's do our best not to touch your hair or your face. Ten instructed, taking the dress out of the bag. Yeah, he was being an ass. Sakura informed Ino, going to the mirror to redo her makeup so she did not look so flustered. What about this time? Ino asked, still curious. Hinata didn't see Sakura glaze her way carefully before turning to her blonde friend and whispering, I'll tell you later. She was all too engrossed with getting her dress on, with only 20 minutes left until she was due to walk down the aisle. Okay, suck it in. Ten said, going to the back of her dress to zip her up. That's not really easy. Hinata said, her hands on her now very small baby bump. Well, try anyway. Ten said, and Hinata took a deep breath. Ten zipped up the dress easily enough, though it was a bit snugger than when Hinata bought it a little over a month ago. The girls all squealed and remarked how amazingly beautiful Hinata was, and Hinata took it all in gracefully. She smiled and she laughed with the girls as best she could, despite the fact that her heart felt like it was going to pound right out of her chest. She felt her stomach drop almost to a point of being non-existent every time she would glaze at the clock, and the minute hand was not where it was since the last time she looked at it. 5 minutes before the hour and all four girls were leaving the room. Ten walked behind Hinata carrying the train of the dress. Sakura walked in front of her carrying her own flowers along with Hinata's small assortment of wild flowers. Ino walked on the other side, still putting pins in the wreath in her head to make sure it would not fall off any time during the day or night to follow. They chatted about everything and nothing. From each other's shoes to how uncomfortable their underwire strapless bras were. Hinata didn't listen to any of it. Her head was filled only with the sound of her own heart thumbing and the blood rushing in between it. As they reached the doors, Hinata visibly gulped upon seeing her cousin standing by the door dressed in his finest robes. He gave her a very small, very private smile, and surprisingly it seemed to calm her shaking nerves. It was a microscopic calm, but a calm nonetheless. The girls got into their line in front her and Neji took her arm in his. He said nothing when the music started and the doors opened, but she remained hidden. She watched each of her friends enter the church in their slow rehearsed steps, and she had to forcibly steady her breathing in fear of passing out from hyperventilation. When the doors closed again and her music queued up, her mouth went dry. Her feet were glued to the floor, her vision tunneled and the blood rushed to her head. Are you ready? The voice beside her was so sudden it made her jump. She looked over at her cousin, who looked at her with an intense look, but an oddly comforting one. She really felt like he was mentally telling her she could still walk away if she wanted to. She heard the music play from the other side of the door. If she walked away, then everything she ever dreamed, everything she ever wanted and was about to get would never come true. Hinata was getting married to the man she had loved since she was a little girl. She took a deep, relaxing breath and nodded. The doors opened and they stepped forward. Everyone stood and turned around to see her, but her eyes zeroed in at the blonde man standing at the altar. He was dressed in a black tuxedo. He was so different she almost didn't recognize him. But then his eyes locked on hers from across the room. He smiled at her and she blushed with a smile back. Neji walked her forward, but she barely felt her feet moving. She was lightheaded and her cheeks were starting to ache from her smiling, but she couldn't stop her grin. When they reached the altar, Neji let go of her arm and placed her hands in Naruto's. She looked down at their hands and then back up at him. He was smiling ever so gently to her, his eyes shining at her. We are gathered here to witness the marriage of Hyuga Hinata and Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade started reading from a large book in front of her. Both of whom have come on their own behalf to pledge themselves to one another completely and fully in their hearts and souls. Hinata was lost in his eyes, his were locked on hers. She squeezed her hand and she felt him squeeze it back. Neither of them could believe this was really happening. Hinata, Tsunade's voice broke into her thoughts. Are you here on your own behalf? I am. And do you promise to fulfill each and every promise you make here today? I will. Naruto. The blonde man looked away from his bride-to-be and to the woman standing over him. Are you here on your own behalf? I am. Naruto said, his eyes drifting back to Hinata. And do you promise to fulfill each and every promise you make here today? I will. If anyone here has a reason why we should not continue, please speak now or forever hold your peace. Tsunade addressed the head sitting down and everyone remained silent looking forward. Very well, Tsunade smiled at them and turned the page. Naruto, please recite your promise before us. Hinata saw him take a deep breath and then felt him squeeze her hand tightly. All that I am and all that I have, I offer to you in love and in joy. From this day forward I will love and comfort you, hold you close, prize you above all others, and remain faithful to you all the days of our lives. She couldn't help it. Her emotions began to get a best of her, tears leaked from her eyes, her breath was caught in her tea. She felt her face flush and her hands shake. This was really happening. This was really happening. She was really getting married to Naruto. This was really happening. She pulled herself together when she heard Tsunade ask her to vow her own promise to him, and she pulled herself together with a deep breath. All that I am and all that I have, I offer to you in love and in joy. From this day forward I will love and comfort you, hold you close, prize you above all others, and remain faithful to you all the days of our lives. At the end of her promise she choked and she was sure only he could hear the words. But she held strong, she took another breath and took hold of her emotions to continue. The rings please, Tsunade asked the man behind Naruto. Naruto turned, getting 2 rings from Sasuke, his best man, who seemed to be holding his trademark Sasuke scowl. But even that could not bring Hinata down from her cloud now. Naruto took a dainty silver ring and took her left hand. Hinata forgot to breath. Let this ring symbolize my love and never-ending devotion to you and you alone. As he said it, the silver band slipped perfectly around her finger. She couldn't contain it any longer, she hiccuped a small cry, wiping her eyes with her free hand. Reaching over she got his ring from Sakura. With shaky hands she took his left hand in hers and hovered the ring over his finger. Let this ring symbolize my love and never-ending devotion to you and you alone. She somehow managed to say the entire sentence without breaking down, and considering her emotions at the moment, that was nothing short of a miracle. By the power vested in me as the Hokage of Konoha, I proudly pronounce you, husband and wife. Naruto, you may kiss your bride. Naruto swept down and planted a one-of-a-kind kiss on her lips. The kiss that made her knees melt and her stomach flutter into a million butterflies. And when he broke away she was crying out of pure joy. To all your friends and family and to the people of Konoha, I present the new Mr. and Mrs. Naruto Uzumaki. Tsunade said, closing her book, and clapped and cheered along with their friends. XXXXX. The reception was not a lavish party one would expect of the former Hyuga heiress. Their handful of friends were there, her closest friends with the dates, along with Shikamaru with Temari on his arm and her 2 brothers close behind. Kiba and Shino brought girls Hinata knew by recognition, but she had never really talked to either of them. Ino brought her newest boyfriend, who looked nice but seemed too quiet for Ino's tastes. Even some Hyuga family came out to support Hinata, including her sister and some of her other cousins. They had a gift table which had a surprising amount of gifts considering the guest lists. They had food and drinks, and thanks to Kiba's constant badgering they even had an open bar, something Hinata would greatly regret by the end of the night, and Kiba would be passed out in the men's toilet. When I get married I'm having a summer wedding in the gardens. Ino exclaimed happily, sitting at her table with a fresh glass of white wine. That sounds pretty. Ten agreed along with her own glass. I prefer an autumn one myself. Sakura chimed in, finishing her glass. Next to her Sasuke rolled his eyes and his girlfriend elbowed him in the ribs. You act like you have a choice, Sakura said, smiling almost evilly to her boyfriend, who only scowled in response. She's right, you know. Naruto piped in, reciting laughter from around the group. Why is it girls always talk of their own weddings at one of these things? Kiba asked his fellow male companions. He received numerous shrugs while the females completely ignored him. Where's the honeymoon? Ino asked the couple. An island getaway. Naruto responded, smirking. The beach. Ino seed her head. This time of year. No tourist. Shikamaru said, catching on, and nodded. When are you two leaving then? He asked, receiving weird looks from around the table but ignored them. Tomorrow morning. Naruto said, and not soon after he said it, an already buzzing Kiba laughed out loud. Anxious for the wedding night? Kiba exclaimed. His date blushed and everyone else looked at him like he was an idiot. Kiba, Ino said, was she on her third or fourth glass? She's pregnant. It's already happened, everyone already knows it. There is no secret anymore. Yes, but it will be their first time as husband and wife. I would think that would put a whole new twist on the matter, right? The boy looked at Naruto, who shrugged and blushed. Kiba, Hinata squealed, bursting red. I don't know, I'll get back to you if you want. Naruto responded and received more laughter from around them. Hinata only grew darker. Naruto's face was flushed, his eyes were laughing. How many drinks had he had? Dude, she's like my sister. Kiba said, making a face. My sentiments exactly. Neji voiced for the first time that night. As they continued to laugh and joke and play, Hinata began to really relax for the first time in a long time. She was now married to the father of her child. He proclaimed and promised his never-ending love for her in front of all their friends and the Hokage herself. They were married. A dance. Ino yelled suddenly with her now empty glass in the air. The bride and groom to kick off the party. Everyone agreed, and Naruto and Hinata were all but shoved out of their chairs and into the center of the room. When the music started, she tentatively took his hand, blushing furiously at all the eyes on her. She never liked being the center of attention. But when she felt strong arms around her waist and pulling her close, everything disappeared. You look really beautiful, he whispered into her ear, his breath on her end. Hinata shivered. So do you, she said, pulling back and meeting his eyes. She blushed sweetly at him and he smiled back. We're married now, he said, his forehead touching hers. Hinata giggled. I know, she said softly, enjoying this closeness, enjoying his scent and his warmth. Crazy, isn't it? His voice was low but it was calm. But it's nice. We both wanted this, right? She answered, pulling back to meet his eyes again. Yes, he said, and instead of another answer he leaned forward and kissed her again. That night, if it was expected for the newlywed couple to have their anticipated husband and wife bliss, it never happened. Hinata was too exhausted to hardly get through the door, and passed out in her wedding dress over the covers the second her head hit the pillow. She didn't know if Naruto was upset about this or not, but the next day he said nothing of it and even made her breakfast. They packed quickly and were on the first train ride out of the station. And a very long train ride it was. Unsurprisingly, Hinata slept through most of it, and when she wasn't asleep she asked Naruto to bring her things from the food cart she saw on the menu. He did without complaint, and they would take turns feeding it to each other in their private car. And when she would feel the need to sleep, he allowed her to rest on his lap and she would drift off happily while he played with her hair. Many hours later the train stopped and Hinata sleepily carried the lighter bags off the train. It was almost evening when they arrived to the ferry which would take them to the island, meaning it would be dark by the time they got to their hotel. On the ferry they found a quiet place to sit apart from the other passengers. They comfortably drank the complimentary tea, talking quietly to each other about how much they were looking forward to doing absolutely nothing for the durations of their love vacation. Excuse me. They turned to see an elderly-looking man with a camera. Yes, Hinata asked him. I was wondering if I could get a picture of you two. You look like such a happy couple. Oh, are those wedding rings I see? The man eyed Hinata's left hand and she felt herself grow pink. Yes, she answered him. Newlyweds? The man asked, smiling at them. Yes, she said again. All the more reason for a picture. You can add it to your photo album. He said, readying his camera. The first one of the honeymoon. Naruto said, putting his hand around her shoulder and pulling her close to him. She met his smiling face and smiled, almost laughed at his goofy grin. Then there was a flash and both of them turned around at the man, confused. We weren't ready, Naruto explained. You're welcome to take another if you like. he said, readying his camera again. Please, Hinata said, and he nodded to her, putting his camera in front of his face. Let me know when you're ready then. The two newlyweds snuggled against each other, with their arms around each other, and smiled into the camera. Ready? He asked them. Ready, Naruto answered, and there was another flash. Thank you, Hinata said, smiling. You're very welcome. Here is where you can pick up your pictures when we get off the ferry. He handed him a slip of paper, and Hinata put it in her pocket. And, the best of luck to both of you, he said, giving him a bow and leaving him back to their quiet private time. They were in such a rush to leave with the rest of the passengers, Hinata had to rush to get the photos while Naruto guarded the bags. She didn't even get time to see them before she paid the woman at the stand and had to almost jump off the ferry before it took her back to the mainland. By the time they got to their hotel and checked in, Hinata was busying herself eyeing the room service menu they had in front of the bistro near the lobby. She wasn't hungry yet, but when she did, she needed to know what was available to her. So far, everything on the menu looking mouth-watering and delicious, it was hard to narrow down her choices. When Naruto told her about their rooms, she already made up her mind of what she was going to eat. Here we are, Naruto said, opening the door and dropping the luggage in front of him. Hinata entered behind him and marveled at their suite. It had a very large bed in the middle of the room. The sheets were a cream color along with a red trim. Candles surrounded them, from the dresser, to the window, to small tables on either side of the bed. There was a fresh bouquet of red roses on the dresser along with a bottle of champagne in a nice bucket, with 2 champagne glasses with red ribbon on them. Did you tell them it was our honeymoon? Hinata asked, going and sitting down on the bed. It was sinfully soft. I may have mentioned something about it. Naruto smirked, going to the bottle of champagne. When it popped open and he began to pour a glass, Hinata stopped him. I can't have alcohol, remember. I may have mentioned that too, he said, careful not to look at her stunned face while he moved to the small fridge at his side. So they would give us this. He opened the fridge and took out a very cold bottle of club soda. Opening it, he poured it into the second glass and handed it to her. Too touched to be upset that he said something about her pregnancy, Hinata accepted the glass with a smile. Naruto came to sit next to her, raising his glass to her. To us, he started. Hinata, I promise you here and now, whatever comes our way, whatever happens to us, we will get through it. I will protect you and our child with my own life. I will make sure you are happy. It may not go down in one of the most romantic toasts in all of human history, but it was all Naruto. And that in itself made Hinata tear up with emotion on hearing it, because she knew he meant every single word he spoke to her. He would keep every single promise he ever made to her. I love you, she said, finding his eyes after he drank his champagne. He looked at her and smiled. I love you too, he said, and before Hinata could do a leap for joy, because saying the word love was not something Naruto did often, her lips were assaulted into a deep, wonderful kiss. As the kiss deepened from one of sweet love into desperate passion, her back was on the bed, his weight on top of her. Her hands ran through his hair and behind his ear. She felt his hands on her hips and then begin to travel under her shirt. She felt his coarse fingers on her skin and she shivered. She felt him go from her back to her stomach. His hand grazed over and then stopped on her stomach. He broke the kiss and looked at her, his hand still on her stomach. They didn't say a word. 1001 things to say were said in just a simple glance between them. And when she whispered her love to him once more, he kissed her again, engulfing her in a storm of passion and love only he could fulfill. In the mornings they slept in until lunchtime, or sometimes even after. They took their time getting up. They would shower together and Naruto would say he's washing the baby and take extra time on her stomach. Then Hinata would get a craving, and while she dressed, her loyal husband would go and get it for her, whatever it may be, from ice cream to pickles to fried fish, the craving were coming on strong. After they ate, they would go on long walks on the almost deserted beaches. They would hold hands and walk slowly, kicking the white sand, or walking in the water. They would sit under umbrellas and talk of their child to be. Naruto would say regardless if it was a boy or girl they would be a remarkable ninja, but he hoped for a boy. When she brought up the subject of names, Naruto asked if he could name it after his father if it was a boy, and in a heartbeat Hinata agreed, saying she would be honored to have their child named after an Uzumaki. And then he would promise her if it was a girl she could name her. Hinata thanked him for the gesture, but she knew it didn't matter if it was a boy or a girl. What mattered was it was her child with him. After their afternoons in the beach, they would go out to dinner. Sometimes they went to wonderful nice restaurants, other times they found small diners in town. People saw they were married and congratulated them in the streets. Hinata would blush and Naruto would put his hand behind his head and laugh, but they would both say thank you. At night they would make love. They would adore each other completely, lost in their own world where they were the only two in existence. At night is when the facade came off, and her new husband would show her just how much he loved her. Sometimes they made love all night, and in the mornings they would sleep in until lunchtime or sometimes even after. But as all vacations, it had to come to an end. And a week and a half later Hinata found herself guarding their luggage at the boardwalk before dawn, while her husband went to get their tickets for the ferry to take them back to the mainland. They would catch a train that would be impossibly long, and then be back in Konoha by nightfall. Okay, Naruto said, coming up behind her. He handed her the tickets to board the ferry and took the luggage. She walked close by him as they walked toward the ferry. She even took hold of his arm, as if she was afraid of getting lost in the sea of people around them. When they boarded, they checked in their luggage and found the table they sat at when they came across the first time. They took it anxiously and Naruto got them the complimentary tea. As he was getting her some honey to put in hers, she watched the island drift by as the sun began to rise behind it and she sighed. Not ready to go back? Naruto asked, sitting down next to her, handing her a hot paper cup. Not really, she admitted. Their time together was so wonderful. She spent an entire week and a half with him all day long every day. Going back to Konoha meant going back to their real life. Their life, which had her restacking books in a too quiet and cold library, and had him disappearing on mission at sometimes months at a time. A life that had him working in the Hokage Tower until long hours into the night, and she would sometimes have to fall asleep alone while waiting for him to come home. Me either, he said, surprising her. Naruto wasn't the type to like to sit around and do nothing. When they did, he often complained of the feeling of being useless and then would rush off to train for hours on end. She turned and put her head on his shoulder, now watching the water out their window. Do you think it will be different? She asked. We're married now, will we be accepted more? She heard him sigh and she instantly regretted saying such a thing. How could she have been so stupid? I don't know, but I think things will be different, to say the least. He said, his blue eyes matching the blue of the water he stared at. I think it will be in a good way, she said and smiled at him when he looked sideways at her. We're married now. You're not just my boyfriend, you're my husband. Things are different now, different in every way. He leaned in and kissed her lightly on her lips. Yeah, he agreed, and she snuggled back into his body while they continued to watch the water until the ferry pulled into port where they would catch the awfully long train ride. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.